Money isn't everything, but if your profession revolves around finance, it kind of is. When stockbrokers, chartered accountants, or economics professors are blindsided by digital bank robbery, it's not just theft. It creates a crisis of faith, a betrayal of the very skills that help these people earn money in the first place. Now, finance professionals may know how to manage money better than the average person, but in Australia's Swiss cheese electronic payment systems, their money can be stolen just as easily as everybody else's.
This has become the most profitable crime on earth because it's such a high profit crime and such a low risk.
3 people with careers in finance, $5 million stolen through digital bank robbery, a lifetime of savings gone. The people you'll meet in this episode were hoodwinked by criminals who laundered their stolen millions through Australian banks. This isn't just a scam victim's worst nightmare. It affects all of us because when the system fails, who should foot the bill? The people you're about to meet were some of Australia's highest paying taxpayers, but cyber-enabled banking fraud stole millions from them. And now it's everyday people like you and I that will likely have to pick up the bill for their age pension.
We have to rely on government pension fund. And that is something that we have worked, both of us have worked so hard, we saved every cent. This should not happen to us.
This is episode 7 of Daylight Robbery. I'm Alex Brooks. In the cat and mouse game of industrial scale banking fraud, the cat is winning. And it's taxpayers that are going to end up paying.
I have now been retired for more than 15 years, but in my previous life, I used to be a fund manager and a stockbroker.
Kessada Sawyer and her husband Kim, a university professor, are some of the many retired Australians who've been devastated by bank impersonation scams.
We lost $2.5 million and it was all laundered.
Most of us think older people lose money to scams because they don't know how to use technology. But that ageist trope needs rethinking. Term deposit scams, screen takeover thefts, fake bonds, AI trading and romance cons are just some of the schemes stealing from Australians through our banking system. Older Australians are especially targeted by cunning criminals who know Australia's uniquely wealthy superannuation system is a honeypot of $4 trillion just waiting to be stolen. Now, Sylvia Chou is not old enough to retire, but she is staring down an uncertain financial future. The chartered accountant was hooked back in 2019 by a fake Facebook ad that ended with NAB releasing more than $1.4 million of refinanced mortgage money to an Australian company called How to Pay Billing.
Now I'm bearing with 1 million debts and the potential bankruptcy, which bring me with no future. I can't continue practice as a public accountant. I can't continue as a registered tax agent.
All up, Sylvia has lost more than $2.6 million, including a $750,000 interest bill from banks Westpac and NAB.
A few times I was thinking suicide because I can't see the hope. I really can't see the lights. Yeah, no business, no money, family breakdown. I don't know what else left for me.
As a single mother who had to borrow money from family and friends after a 2019 fraud, Sylvia's kids are no longer in close contact. The banks are chasing her in court to repay money. And if Sylvia is made bankrupt, her professional registration will be struck off. That means she'll need to rely on government support to live.
How did it affect me? Like I said, family fall apart. Kids were not in the position to understand what I go through.
Australia's banks, mobile phone networks and digital economy is littered with fakes and frauds and very few consumer protections. Australian laws and regulations haven't kept up with fast-changing technology that allows business people to exploit loopholes. Last episode, I revealed Australian mule bank accounts receiving scammed or laundered money can be traded for as little as $50 through Facebook. Fraud detection company BioCatch found more than 2 million mule bank accounts across the globe in 2024. While banks admit that scams and fraud are increasingly sophisticated, they won't admit it's their staff who are often the first people duped in a world of fast-changing and complex fraud. In fact, Australian Banking Association CEO Anna Bligh told the Senate,
overwhelmingly, scams come to customers through their telephone, through their social media platforms, through emails. Scams do not come to customers through their bank account or their banking app.
Now, this is a bit of a furphy. It is bank tellers and customer service staff, just like victims, who are tricked, usually before a scam has even begun. For example, teller staff unwittingly set up mule accounts with fake or forged identity documents. And it's bank staff that approve transactions over $10,000 to be sent overseas, usually in contradiction of Australia's counter-terrorism financing and money laundering laws.
Because we need to understand that the strategy of the banks and the scammers are the same. They want to blame the victims because that gets them off the hook.
Kim and Kessada were tricked by a fake St George Bank website and a team of overseas-based scammers. Yes, those nice men with British accents who used Australian phone numbers and real bank employees' names stolen from LinkedIn to help the Sawyers move their money to the safety of a very fake term deposit. The Sawyers were conned over a period of 3 to 4 months. The irony of their scam was that banks recovered $15,000, but only because the scammers threatened legal action and AFCA made the banks pay it back to Kim and Kessada.
They gave the money to the scammer when they knew it was a scam.
So the scammer complained to AFCA
And threatened legal action against
legal
Westpac.
action to a Westpac, and Westpac released the money to them,
scam.
knowing full well
It was a
that
scam.
it was a scam.
Yes, you heard that right. The scammer took legal action against banks for holding up their money. And that's because the scammers open business accounts that pretend to be legitimate. These scammers don't walk around with the word criminal tattooed to their forehead. But under the banking code, all Australian banks are supposed to have well-trained staff who should be able to spot these crooks. Yet fraudulent transfers are approved by bank staff all the time, even when it's clear the name doesn't match the account or the customer believes they're opening a St George term deposit with a NAB or Westpac BSB number.
When you think of that example, where a scammer can threaten legal action and complain to AFCA and get the money out of their account, even when the bank knows it's a scam, what the hell's going on? I mean, where are the lines of the sand?
There is no protection if you send $1 million to a different bank. It's just like it's gone, and it's untraceable.
That's Simon Smith, a forensic cybercrime expert who says banks and financial firms have virtually no duty of care to prevent fraud or mistaken payments on behalf of customers. Yet if you, the customer, receive money in your bank account by mistake and then spend it, you're the one who could go to jail. That's precisely what happened to a Melbourne couple after a Bulgarian crypto firm mistakenly put $10.5 million into their CommBank account. The couple spent that money, and Jatinder Singh is now spending 3 years in jail for dealing with proceeds of crime and theft from CommBank for withdrawing the money. So there's one rule for banks making mistaken payments and another for customers. Now, Australian banks do thankfully try to recall and recover scammed money.
We've since recovered $187,000, but that's it. And it was only because it was left in a mule account and we don't even know that it was our money, but we got the money back.
But Kim and Kessada have no ability to check the accuracy of the amounts that AFCA says have been recovered. Banks could in fact recover more money and simply keep it for themselves. There's no one policing the banks. And the banks say it's privacy rules that prevent them making these numbers transparent. But investigator Ken Gamble says the privacy rules are a convenient excuse.
They're hiding because of the liability aspect. They're keeping it within the confines of their own bank because if they start giving this data out, then it could make them all of a sudden liable for lawsuits.
Now, back in the 70s, 80s and into the 90s and 2000s, banks did do manual settlements and authorisations. That was why bank branches closed at 3 p.m. Bank staff didn't go home for the day until all daily transactions had been tallied, balanced and settled. Because if the bank got the numbers wrong, the bank wore the loss. Now, just as handling all that cash made banks targets for violent armed robberies, cash also made sure banks checked and double-checked everything. Now, banks no longer transfer real currency or cash. It's just numbers updated on a computer screen authorised by some anonymous bank employee rather than a teller you can look in the eye at a branch. Electronic payments and transfers are leaking money to thieves here in Australia and overseas.
Online fraud, the reason I think it's happening is because online transactions suit the banks. They get money out of that. We know that. They're closing branches, they're closing your contact with people. So the money that we've got left, we're now absolutely determined to have a person that we deal with now and not online. So they get away with it because it's in their interest to have online transactions, and what they're doing is they're not taking the risk.
There's a responsibility.
Yeah.
Now, banks claim AUSTRAC and privacy rules prevent them telling customers what's really going on with their money once it's transferred into the electronic banking system. Yet police subpoena this information all the time, and this information is also protected and can't be disclosed to victims.
If we had $2.5 million stolen from our house, everyone will look at it entirely differently. It's because with a financial crime, somehow the very fact that you click on a link or click on that we only ever got one phone call from a bank to ask us whether we authorise this transfer. We authorise the transfer, but we authorise the transfer into our name, not the name of a scammer.
Most of us unconsciously assume older Australians struggle to use technology, making them easy targets for scams. But the truth is that digital bank robbery is costing victims staggering amounts, with losses reaching eye-watering figures that go beyond struggling with technology.
It's funny because I remember the days when scams used to be that you trick someone into spending $20 over here or you gift cards and stuff. I was always all through the 2010s. I was all into that and investigating big time, more than now. But now they just pretend to be a bank and take your investment, or your house for your mortgage. So okay, you want a term deposit? No problem. We can sign it up for 3 years. Give us $2 million, thanks.
Now, Australian Banking Association CEO Anna Bligh says banks do try to stop suspicious or scam transfers, but it's customers who insist the bank should follow their instructions.
Banks really have no legal grounds on which they can refuse to transfer it. The money belongs to the customer. And if the customer insists against all advice on transferring the funds, there really is no grounds on which a bank can refuse to do that.
But when accountant Sylvia Chou was in the midst of a highly organised cryptocurrency trading scam in 2019, her bank NAB did not, in fact, warn her she was experiencing a scam. They actually laughed at her. The bank also claimed they didn't have her phone number, so they couldn't possibly call her up to warn her anyway. So it all started when Sylvia saw this Facebook ad from the TV show Shark Tank talking about a new way to trade. Sylvia wanted to know more. She had traded online before and was keen to see how this new platform worked. So what began with one $250 trade in February 2019 unravelled into an extreme $2.6 million loss.
I am a qualified accountant and I'm a registered tax agent, and I did trading in 2006 as well. So this is not the first time I did a trading. Unfortunately, this is the first time I fall into a scam.
Sylvia was trading with a platform called Blue Lexus, but it was a CommBank business account called How to Pay Billing that received the money from her NAB bank account to pay for the trades. And this blue Lexus gave her free bonus trades. And they told Sylvia that their policy insisted she has to pay back the bonus trades before she can withdraw her profits. Now, this is actually a common social engineering trick, similar to the one Levita experienced in episode 4. But Sylvia didn't know that back in 2019. So she kept trading for another 3 months, believing she had made $2.5 million. And at the time, she really thought all she had to do was pay $1 million margin call to get her $2.5 million out of the platform. So Sylvia went to NAB to explain this and asked if she could borrow the money. But the bank laughed at her.
I said, I got money sitting overseas and trading is about 2.5 million sitting there, but I need the money to unlock my account so I can cash out the profit I made it in the trading. And the person in NAB just laughed at me and she said, if you have so much money, why you need more money?
Instead of explaining that Sylvia had fallen victim to a very common type of investment and trading scam, NAB just told her they couldn't help. So then Sylvia went to Westpac, who agreed to refinance her 3 properties so she could access that money to get her trading profits released. The problem? Well, that refinanced mortgage money was paid earlier than Sylvia expected. So within 3 hours of it hitting her NAB account, it had been released to the scammers.
Within 3 hours, less than 3 hours, hundreds transactions from NAB's account to the scammer. And according to NAB, that's beyond their detective strategy.
It took weeks for Sylvia to untangle what had actually gone on. And when she didn't get her trading profits released, a kind neighbour took a look at everything to explain she'd likely fallen victim to what's known as an unlicensed trading scam. Sure enough, a few months later, ASIC published a warning about Blue Lexus, banning banks from making payments to it. But that was too late for Sylvia. As soon as ASIC shuts down scams like Blue Lexus, 3 new ones with different names and more convincing Facebook ads pop up to steal more from unwishing Australians like Gary Meachen, who lives in the New South Wales town of Broke and is, well, broke. He lost $461,000 of his life savings to the same type of investment scam Sylvia was conned by. Gary was hooked in by an Elon Musk Facebook ad, not Shark Tank, and his trading company was called Blue Star and Rock Coins, not Blue Lexus. Gary started with a small trade and began transferring money, eventually making profits of $400 or $500 a day. He also rejoined X, formerly known as Twitter, and had the man himself, Elon Musk, along with Elon Musk's brother and Elon Musk's wife, messaging him about his trading. Now, money is a powerful social engineering tool that encourages people to share more information about themselves with their friendly account managers, who call regularly over the phone from what looks like an Australian number to chat and extract more information about what other assets or money their clients can put into trading platforms.
When you get the taste of it, when you're making good money, the brain goes in a different direction. It goes, I like this.
Over 4 months, the trading platform gave Gary bonus trades and moved him up from bronze level through to silver and gold.
And then you get the discount and then the money comes through and it's huge and it lands in your platform. And you go, whoa, this is something else.
When Gary tried to withdraw his profits, like Sylvia, the platform insists those bonus trades and gifts have to be paid back first.
We got caught in the blockchain contract. Yeah, we had to have paid gas fees and all this stuff. And the guy was so convincing.
Banks now refuse to release funds to crypto platforms and limit how much people can spend on crypto. But that doesn't help if the funds initially go to a bank account. ABA CEO Anna Bligh told the Senate that new banking limits have decreased the extreme losses people like Sylvia and Gary experienced.
Investment scams, and that's where the most money is lost. And that's dropped somewhere around 60%, those investment scams using crypto platforms. So that's why banks say, let's make sure that the customer never sees the scam in the first place. That's the best way of protecting them.
But it's all too little, too late for Gary and Sylvia and Kim and Kessada. Neither of those people lost money because they didn't know how to use technology. They were being manipulated by powerful international organised crime that no government has been willing or able to stop. And these financial crimes aren't really just about money. They're about power too. And what could be more disempowering than for a finance professional to lose everything after months of gaslighting and deception by organised crime, as well as their own bank?
For months on end, I literally felt that I was dead. I was like, I could not function. I lost all my confidence. I relied totally on Kim to support me. I literally felt like I was a dead person, totally alienated from the rest of the society.
And that difficulty finding justice compounds the trauma.
Because not only are we up against the scammers, we're up against the banks and we're up against the authorities as well. So it was sort of like written for us that, that's what we're up against. The scam didn't end on October the 6th last year. Well, I won't say it started on October the 6th, but it was almost like that. The deception since has been as bad as the original scam. There's no question about it. Worse. We just feel we've been deceived by everyone. No one's telling the truth to us.
This digital thing is a trap, basically. And I think older people can't handle it. And I think Australia will just turn into everybody's scamming everybody. Everybody's scamming each other because it's normal.
Now, banks, telcos, and big tech don't want scammers or criminals on their platforms. But are they working hard enough to take them out? Tech company lobbyist Sunita Bose, who represents Facebook and Google, says every scam relies on complex, but mostly legal, attack chains.
Scammers, in order to be successful, need to build a web across exploiting various services that Australians use every day. They start by building the financial infrastructure in which to receive funds, often through offshore bank accounts or cryptocurrency. They then build legitimacy, often sometimes by creating fake ABNs or building a fake social media profile in order to deceive consumers into their legitimacy. They then make contact, perhaps through a messaging service or through by telephone, and they engage Australians into a conversation in which to secure their personal information and their financial information. And then once they obtain that financial information, that's where they carry out theft through financial services.
And when you look at each link in the chain of deception, nearly all of it is enabled by big tech, telcos, banks, regulators, and by extension, the government. And criminals, well, they call themselves business people, remember, are so clever. All they need to do is go to Fraud University to learn new ways to stay one step ahead of the game.
Another fraud expert has told me that there are fraud universities, so the old school fraud defrauding experts are training up the new generation. Have you heard about stuff like that?
I have, and there was a fraud university being run out of Ukraine before the Ukraine war started. That would have closed down at the initial stages of the Ukraine war, where we saw a lot of the scammers going to other countries to continue their scamming. But now that the situation in Ukraine has been going on for quite some time, we know that the scammers are starting to come back to Ukraine. We're getting hits on IP addresses from Ukraine, and we're hearing from our informants that they're definitely now operating back in Kiev. It's seen as a safe zone, even though it's also known as a war zone.
Now, money has been used as a weapon of war for centuries. In Israel's recent Gaza crisis, banks shut down, ATMs fell empty, and people couldn't buy food or medicine. Families desperate for cash had to pay ruthless traders extortionate fees, sometimes even handing over their ID as collateral. And back during World War II, Hitler planned to destroy Britain by dropping counterfeit pound notes from the sky. He was counting on impoverished wartime Brits pocketing the money and creating hyperinflation. Because when you mess with money, you mess with more than economics, inflation, or politics, or even careers. You mess with people's heads.
I said to Kirsta, if we don't if we're not prepared to speak about it, particularly people in our situation, then everybody will continue with that sense of shame. And I said, and then the scammer wins twice. That's what it's about. They win first, they take your money, and then they take your soul.
Exactly. Staying silent gives scammers and enablers the power to do it again and again and again and again. Next time on Daylight Robbery, I explain how my own son's experience buying his first home opened my eyes to the depths of how many legal deceptions lurk within Australia's financial system. Subscribe and follow to get the next episode.